I've spent 32 years putting houses back together. Cracked foundations, rotted beams, walls that lean like drunks at closing time. You learn to read a structure the way a doctor reads an x-ray. You see the stress points, the places where everything might come apart. I should have been reading people the same way. The first time I met Macy Rendall, she was standing in my son's apartment wearing one of his old college shirts, and nothing else. Well, probably something else. But the shirt hung long enough that I couldn't tell. She smiled at me like we were old friends, like showing up half-dressed in front of your boyfriend's father was the most natural thing in the world. "You must be Harold," she said, extending her hand. "Gavin talks about you constantly." I shook her hand. It was small, warm, confident. Her nails were painted the color of wine. "All good things, I hope," I said. "Mostly." She laughed, and Gavin appeared behind her, fully dressed, looking embarrassed and proud at the same time. That was 8 months ago. Now I was standing in the back room of Macy's Brew, her coffee shop, staring at a jacket that didn't belong to my son. The shop had been Gavin's idea, really. Or maybe it was Macy's idea, and Gavin just thought it was his. Hard to say. Either way, he'd sunk $40,000 into it. Money I'd helped him save over the years, plus a loan I'd co-signed because I'm an idiot who believes in supporting his kids' dreams. The place was nice enough. Exposed brick, Edison bulbs, the kind of reclaimed wood tables that cost more than new ones because they look old. Macy had taste, I'd give her that. She also had a head for business, at least according to Gavin. The shop was profitable within 6 months. "Dad, can you take a look at the wall back here?" Gavin had asked me 3 days ago. "There's some water damage near the floor." So here I was, on my knees with a flashlight, examining the baseboard. The damage was minor, probably from mopping with too much water. Easy fix. But when I stood up and turned around, I saw the jacket hanging on a hook behind the door. Leather, expensive, size large. Gavin wore medium. I picked it up, felt the weight of it. There was a cologne smell, something woody and expensive. Not what Gavin wore. In the inside pocket, I found a receipt from a steakhouse downtown. Date, 5 days ago. Time, 9:30 p.m. The shop closed at 8. Before we go any further, take a second to subscribe, hit the hype button and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? I put the jacket back exactly where I'd found it. My phone buzzed. Grace, my wife. "How's the wall?" she texted. "Fine," I typed back. "But I think we have a problem." The thing about being married for 30 years is you develop a shorthand. Grace knew immediately what kind of problem I meant. She didn't ask questions over text. She just sent back, "Home by 6. We'll talk." I finished the baseboard repair in 20 minutes, packed my tools, and walked out through the main shop area. Macy was behind the counter, making something complicated with foam. She looked up and smiled. "All fixed?" "All fixed," I said. "You're a lifesaver, Harold. Gavin's so lucky to have you." I nodded and left. The drive home took 15 minutes. I spent all of them thinking about that jacket, that receipt, that cologne. I spent all of them telling myself I was jumping to conclusions, that there could be a dozen innocent explanations. But I've been in construction my entire adult life. I know the difference between a crack that's settling and a crack that's spreading. This was spreading. Grace was already home when I arrived, sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open. She worked as a paralegal at a real estate law firm, which meant she knew more about contracts and property law than most lawyers. She looked up when I walked in. "Tell me," she said. I told her. The jacket, the receipt, the cologne. I told her about the water damage that wasn't really damage, just carelessness. I told her about the way Macy had smiled at me, so confident, so sure of herself. When I finished, Grace closed her laptop. "That's not proof," she said. "That's suspicion." "I know. But your instincts are usually good." "I know that too." She drummed her fingers on the table, a habit she had when she was thinking through a legal problem. "Remember when you helped them renovate the back room? You installed a security camera." I had. Just a basic one, aimed at the rear exit. Macy had wanted it for insurance purposes in case someone broke in through the alley door. The footage stored on a cloud server for 30 days. "I need to see that footage," I said. "Gavin has the login," Grace said, "but I might be able to get it another way. Give me until tomorrow." That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about Gavin, about how happy he'd been the past few months. He'd proposed to Macy 6 weeks ago, right in the middle of the coffee shop during the morning rush. She'd cried, he'd cried, everyone had applauded. There was a video on Instagram with 40,000 views. He was 29 years old. Good kid, decent job in IT support, nothing flashy but stable. He wasn't handsome in a magazine way, but he had kind eyes and he made people laugh. He deserved better than whatever this was. The next morning, Grace came into my workshop holding her phone. "I got into the security footage," she said. "You need to see this." The video was from 11 nights ago. Timestamp 9:47 p.m. The back room was dark except for the light from the alley. The rear door opened. Macy walked in, followed by a man I'd never seen before. He was tall, well-built, wearing the leather jacket. They kissed immediately. Not a friendly kiss, not a mistaken kiss. The kind of kiss that said they'd done this before many times. They moved out of frame toward where I knew the storage shelves were. The camera didn't follow them, but the audio kept recording. I heard Macy laugh, heard the man say something I couldn't make out, heard her respond. "He's working late tonight. We have time." Grace stopped the video. I sat down on my workbench, feeling like someone had hit me in the chest with a hammer. "There's more," Grace said quietly. "From other nights?" She was right. Over the next hour, we found 6 more instances. Different nights. Always after closing, always the same man. In one video, they were visible for longer. I could see Macy's hand on his face, could see the way he held her. In another, I heard her say something that made my hands shake. "The baby's yours," she said. "Gavin will never know." Baby. She was pregnant. I thought about the engagement party, about Macy glowing, about Gavin's face when he talked about becoming a father. I thought about the house they'd been looking at, the one I'd agreed to help them with the down payment for. Grace put her hand on my shoulder. "We have to tell him," she said. "I know. Tonight. I know." But I also knew that showing Gavin this footage would end his world. It would take everything he believed about his future and turn it into ash. It would break him in ways I wasn't sure I could fix. I downloaded all the videos onto a thumb drive. I made copies. I documented everything with timestamps and dates. Then I sat in my workshop until Grace came and told me it was time. Gavin arrived at 7. We'd asked him to come over for dinner, said we wanted to talk about wedding plans. He walked in smiling, carrying a bottle of wine, talking about cake flavors and venue options. We ate first. I couldn't taste anything. Grace made conversation, asked about work, about Macy, about the shop. Gavin answered easily, happily. He had no idea what was coming. After dinner, we sat in the living room. Gavin was still talking about the wedding, about how Macy wanted a destination ceremony, maybe something near the coast. "Son," I said, and something in my voice made him stop. He looked at me, then at Grace, then back at me. "Ugh, what's wrong?" he asked. I pulled out my laptop, opened the first video, and turned the screen toward him. "You need to watch this," I said. I watched my son's face as he watched the footage. I watched him go pale. I watched his hands start to shake. I watched him stop breathing for a moment when he heard Macy's voice say the baby wasn't his. When the video ended, he just sat there. "Gavin," Grace said gently. He stood up suddenly, knocking over his wine glass. Red liquid spread across the coffee table like something wounded. "No," he said. "No, that's not. There has to be an explanation." "There are 6 more videos," I said. "Different nights, same man." "Stop," he said. "Just stop." But I couldn't stop. I showed him the rest. I showed him everything. With each video, I watched something fade from his eyes. Gavin didn't say anything for 20 minutes. He just sat on the couch, staring at nothing, while Grace cleaned up the spilled wine and I tried to figure out what you're supposed to say to your son when his entire future has just collapsed. Finally, he spoke. "How long have you known?" 2 days, I said. "I found evidence 3 days ago. Got the footage yesterday." "And you waited?" "I had to be sure," I said. "I had to have proof you couldn't deny." He laughed, but it sounded like breaking glass. "Well, mission accomplished." Grace sat down next to him, not touching him, just close. "I know this is—" "Don't," Gavin said. "Don't tell me you know how this feels. You don't." She nodded. "You're right. I don't." Gavin put his head in his hands. His shoulders shook. Grace looked at me, and I saw the same helplessness in her eyes that I felt in my chest. "I gave her everything," Gavin said into his palms. "The money for the shop, the ring, the plans for the house. I believed every word she said." "I know," I said. "The baby." His voice cracked. "She let me think the baby was mine. She let me tell people. My coworkers threw me a party." He looked up at me then, and his eyes were wet. "What do I do, Dad?" It was the same question he'd asked me when he was 7 and bigger kids were taking his lunch money. The same question when he was 16 and failed his driver's test twice. The same question when he was 22 and lost his first real job. What do I do, Dad? Usually, I had an answer. Fix the problem. Face the challenge. Try again. This time was different. You leave her, Grace said. You cancel the wedding and you walk away. And she keeps everything? Gavin's voice was rising. She keeps the shop that I paid for? She keeps her reputation while everyone thinks I'm the one who screwed up? The shop is partially yours, Grace said. You own 40% through the investment contract. We can fight for that. Fight? Gavin stood up, started pacing. How? She'll lie. She'll say I'm making it up. She'll turn everyone against me. We have evidence, I said, that I stole from her security system. That you legally accessed, Grace corrected. You're listed as an authorized user on the account. Everything we have is admissible. Gavin stopped pacing. He looked at Grace, then at me. Something was shifting in his face, moving from devastation towards something harder. What are you saying? He asked. I'm saying we can prove what she did, Grace said carefully. We can document the infidelity, the false paternity, everything. With the right approach, we can protect your investment and your reputation. That's not enough, Gavin said. The room went quiet. What do you mean? I asked. Gavin sat back down, but he wasn't crying anymore. He was thinking, and I recognized the expression on his face. It was the same look I got when I was planning a complicated renovation, seeing all the steps in sequence. She wanted to destroy me, he said slowly. She was going to take everything, my money, my future, my dignity. She was going to make me raise another man's child and pretend I was lucky. Yes, Grace said. Then leaving isn't enough? Gavin looked at both of us. I want her to feel what she did to me. I want everyone to know what she really is. I should have stopped him there. I should have told him that revenge was a poison, that the best thing was to walk away clean and rebuild his life. But I didn't say any of that, because I was thinking about Macy's smile, about her confidence, about the way she'd said, Gavin's so lucky to have you, while she was lying to him about everything that mattered. Tell me what you're thinking, I said. Gavin leaned forward. The wedding is in 6 weeks. She's been planning it like it's the event of the century. Big venue, 200 guests, everything documented on social media. And? Grace asked. And I don't cancel it, Gavin said. I go through with it. I let her have her perfect day, her moment in the spotlight, her chance to show everyone how happy she is. I don't understand, I said, though part of me was starting to. The business contract we signed, Gavin said, looking at Grace. It has clauses about conduct and reputation, right? You helped me draft it. Grace nodded slowly. Yes, standard partnership language. If either party engages in behavior that materially harms the business or the other partner, there are consequences. Including termination of ownership? Potentially, yes. But you'd have to prove... We have proof, Gavin said. We have video evidence of her having an affair, of her planning to commit paternity fraud. That harms me. That harms the business reputation. But if you marry her, I said, aren't you accepting the situation? Not if I don't know about it, Gavin said. Not if the revelation comes after the wedding, in front of everyone, in a way she can't deny or explain away. Grace was shaking her head, but I could see she was considering it. That's extremely risky. If we get the timing wrong, if we miss any legal detail... That's why I need your help, Gavin said. Both of you. Dad, you know construction, you know how to build things. Mom, you know law, you know contracts. Together, we can build a case that destroys her. Son, I started, but he cut me off. She tried to trap me, Dad. She tried to steal my future and make me thank her for it. She's carrying another man's child and was going to let me raise it as mine. She doesn't get to walk away from this clean. He was right. Everything he said was right. But there was something else in his voice now, something cold and calculated that I'd never heard before. My son was gentle. He fixed computers. He cried at dog movies. This hardness didn't belong to him, except now it did. Macy had put it there. I'm in, I said. Grace looked at me. Harold, I'm in, I repeated. She goes after my son. She answers to me. Grace closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, she looked tired. If we do this, we do it right. Everything legal, everything documented, everything bulletproof. I won't be part of something that crosses ethical lines. Agreed, Gavin said immediately. And we need to be prepared for her to fight back, Grace continued. She's not going to accept this quietly. She'll lie, she'll manipulate, she'll do everything she can to turn the narrative around. Let her try, Gavin said. We'll have evidence. We'll have witnesses. We'll have the truth. I looked at my son, at the determination in his face, and I felt something shift in my chest. This wasn't about protecting him anymore. This was about teaching him to protect himself. Okay, I said. Here's how we start. We spent the next 3 hours planning. Grace pulled out her laptop and started making notes, organizing our evidence, identifying legal strategies. I made coffee, strong and black, and tried to think like Macy would think. She was smart. She had to have pulled this off for months without Gavin noticing. She was manipulative, skilled at reading people and telling them what they wanted to hear. She was also arrogant, confident that she'd covered her tracks. That confidence was going to be her weakness. We need her to believe everything is normal, I said. Gavin, you have to act like nothing changed. Still loving, still excited about the wedding, still planning your future together. I can do that, Gavin said, and his voice was flat. Can you? Grace asked gently. Because if she suspects anything, if she sees any change in you, she'll know something's wrong. You have to be convincing. Gavin was quiet for a moment, then he nodded. She fooled me for months. I think I can fool her for 6 weeks. What about the baby? I asked. She's going to start showing soon? She's 3 months along, Gavin said. According to her. She told me 2 weeks ago. He laughed bitterly. I was so happy. I called everyone I knew. Grace made a note. The pregnancy complicates things legally, but it also gives us leverage. Paternity fraud is serious. If we can prove the child isn't yours... We can, Gavin said. We have the video of her saying it. That's hearsay without corroboration, Grace said. We'd need a paternity test after the baby's born. That's too late, I said. By then, she could have moved assets, changed ownership, anything. Then we need more evidence, Grace said. We need to identify the father, establish a pattern of deception, create a timeline that proves this was premeditated. I can do that, I said. I'll go back to the shop, install a better camera system, one she doesn't know about. I'll document everything. That's illegal surveillance, Grace warned. Not if Gavin authorizes it. He's a part owner. He has the right to monitor his investment. Grace considered this. Technically, yes, but we'd need to be careful about audio recording. In this state, two-party consent is required for... No audio then, I said. Just video. Just proof of who's coming and going. Gavin was looking at me with something like awe. You've really thought this through. I rebuild houses for a living, I said. You have to plan every step before you start swinging a hammer. Otherwise, everything collapses. So what's our foundation? Gavin asked. I smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. Macy's ego. She thinks she's in control. She thinks she's smarter than everyone else. We let her keep thinking that while we build the case around her. And the wedding? Grace asked. The wedding is our deadline, I said. Everything has to be ready by then. Every piece of evidence, every legal document, every witness statement. When that day comes, we don't just expose her, we dismantle her completely. The next morning, I drove to a security supply store 40 minutes outside town. I needed cameras, small, wireless, invisible. Business monitoring, I told the clerk. Need something discreet. He sold me 4 miniature cameras with encrypted cloud storage. I paid cash. At Macy's Brew, I let myself in through the back. The shop was busy, Macy working the counter with her practiced smile. I installed the cameras in 30 minutes, behind vents, inside light fixtures, covering every angle. When I finished, I tested the app on my phone. 4 clear feeds appeared. Perfect. Over the next 3 weeks, those cameras captured everything. Macy and her lover met 5 more times. Always after closing, always careful, but not careful enough. I documented every encounter, every conversation I could read from their body language, every moment that proved this wasn't a mistake. It was a pattern. Gavin played his part perfectly. He took Macy to dinner, bought her flowers, talked about baby names. She never suspected. Why would she? She'd been lying to him for months. She thought she was the only one capable of deception. Meanwhile, Grace worked on the legal framework. She reviewed the business partnership contract, identified the exact clauses we needed, prepared documentation that would hold up under scrutiny. The key is the morality clause, she explained one night at our kitchen table. Any action that materially damages the business reputation or the partner relationship can trigger ownership termination. Infidelity qualifies. Paternity fraud definitely qualifies. Will it hold up? Gavin asked. If we present it correctly, yes. But timing is everything. We expose her too early, she fights back. Too late, the moment loses impact. The wedding, I said. We do it at the wedding. Grace nodded slowly. Maximum witnesses. Maximum emotional impact. Minimum chance for her to spin the narrative. She'll be destroyed, Gavin said. He didn't sound sad about it. 2 weeks before the wedding, Macy started making demands. "Harold, we need to talk about the house," she said when I stopped by the shop to fix a loose cabinet. "Gavin and I have been looking, and we found the perfect place. It's $300,000, and we need help with the down payment." "How much help?" I asked. $50,000, just a loan. We'll pay you back within 5 years." I kept my face neutral. "That's a lot of money, Macy." "I know, but think of it as an investment in your grandchild's future." She put her hand on her stomach, which was just starting to show. "This baby deserves a real home." I wanted to tell her the truth right there. I wanted to throw every piece of evidence in her face and watch her crumble. But that wasn't the plan. "Let me talk to Grace," I said. "Thank you, Harold. You're such a good man." That night, I told Grace about the conversation. "She's getting bolder," Grace said. "She thinks she's already won." "Good," I said. "Let her think that." The week before the wedding, things accelerated. Macy posted constantly on social media, photos of her dress, the venue, the flower arrangements. Every post was a performance of happiness, carefully curated to show the world her perfect life. Gavin moved through it all like a ghost. He smiled at the right times, said the right things, but I could see the emptiness in his eyes. Whatever love he'd felt for Macy had been replaced by something else, something cold and patient. The cameras kept recording. The evidence kept mounting. Grace kept preparing documents. 3 days before the wedding, Macy called me. "Harold, I need a favor." "What is it?" "Can you come to the venue? There's some structural issue with the archway they're building for the ceremony. I need your professional opinion." I drove to the venue, a restored barn 40 minutes from town. The place was beautiful. Exposed wood beams, string lights, windows that looked out over rolling hills. Macy had spent a fortune making it perfect. She met me outside wearing tight jeans and a loose top that showed off her pregnancy. "Thank you for coming. The archway is inside." I followed her in. The archway was fine. Solid construction, no issues. But I examined it anyway, checked the joints, tested the stability. "Looks good," I said. "No problems." "That's a relief." Macy moved closer, lowered her voice. "Harold, I want to ask you something, just between us." "What?" "After the wedding, Gavin and I are going to need more than just the house. We're going to need ongoing support. You understand that, right?" I looked at her. "What kind of support?" "Financial, emotional, the kind of support family provides." She smiled, but there was steel in it. "I know you love your son. I know you want him to be happy, so I'm sure you'll do whatever it takes to make sure this marriage succeeds." "And if I don't?" Her smile widened. "Then I'd have to reconsider some things, like whether Gavin is really the father of this baby, like whether his father made inappropriate advances toward me during our engagement." There it was, the threat I'd been waiting for. "You'd lie about that?" I asked quietly. "I'd tell my truth," she said. "And who do you think people would believe? The pregnant bride or the older man who spent so much time alone with her?" I should have been angry. I should have been scared. But all I felt was satisfaction, because now I knew exactly how far she was willing to go. "I'll think about it," I said. "Don't think too long," Macy said. "We have a wedding in 3 days. I'd hate for anything to ruin it." That night, I met with Gavin and Grace. I told them everything. "She just gave us the final piece," Grace said. "She threatened you. She implied she'd fabricate charges. That's extortion." "Can we prove it?" Gavin asked. I pulled out my phone. I was recording the whole conversation. "That's illegal in this state," Grace said automatically. Then she paused. "Unless you felt threatened, then it's self-defense documentation." "I felt very threatened," I said. Gavin stood up, started pacing. "So we have everything. The infidelity, the false paternity, the financial manipulation, the extortion. We have it all." "Yes," Grace said. "Now we just need to execute the plan perfectly." The morning of the wedding was bright and clear. I woke up early, put on my suit, and drove to the venue with Grace. We arrived before most of the guests, watched as the caterers set up tables and the florist arranged centerpieces. Macy was already there, surrounded by bridesmaids, glowing with excitement. She saw me and waved. "Harold, can you believe this day is finally here?" "No," I said honestly. "I really can't." The guests started arriving around 2. Friends, family, co-workers, people from the neighborhood. 200 people, all dressed up, all here to celebrate a marriage that was built on lies. Gavin arrived at 3, looking pale but composed. He found me near the bar. "You ready?" I asked. "I've been ready for 6 weeks," he said. At 3:30, the ceremony began. Macy walked down the aisle in a white dress that probably cost more than my truck, smiling like she'd won the lottery. Gavin stood at the altar, watching her come toward him. The officiant started the ceremony. I barely heard the words. I was watching Macy, watching the way she held Gavin's hands, the way she looked at him with those lying eyes. The ceremony progressed like something out of a dream. The officiant spoke about love and commitment, while Macy gazed at Gavin with perfect adoration. The guests watched, many dabbing at their eyes. I stood in the front row next to Grace, my hand in my pocket, fingers wrapped around the envelope of photographs I'd printed that morning. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, silence filled the barn. Macy smiled wider. Then, by the power vested in me, the officiant began. "Wait," Macy said suddenly, turning to face the crowd. "Before we finish, I want to say something." She hadn't planned this. I could see Gavin's surprise, see the officiant's confusion. "I just want to thank everyone for being here," Macy said, her voice carrying across the barn. "Especially Harold." She looked directly at me. "Harold has been so generous with us, so supportive, and I know he's going to continue supporting us as we start our family and build our future together." She paused, her hand on her stomach. "In fact, Harold has already promised to help us buy our first house. $50,000. Isn't that right, Harold?" Every eye in the barn turned to me. This was her putting me on the spot, using social pressure to lock me in. Grace touched my arm, a warning. But I knew what I was doing. I stood up. "Actually, Macy, I need to talk to you about that." "Now?" She laughed, but I heard the edge in it. "Harold, this is our wedding." "I know," I said, "but this can't wait." I walked toward the altar. The guests murmured. The officiant stepped back. Gavin remained perfectly still, watching me approach. When I reached Macy, she was still smiling, but her eyes were cold. "What are you doing?" she hissed. "You asked me for $50,000, I said, loud enough for the front rows to hear. "You said it was for your future, for the baby. But 3 days ago, you threatened me. You said if I didn't support you financially, you'd claim I made inappropriate advances toward you." Her smile vanished. "That's not what I said." "It's exactly what you said." I pulled out my phone, pressed play. Her voice filled the barn, crystal clear. "I'd have to reconsider some things, like whether Gavin is really the father of this baby, like whether his father made inappropriate advances toward me." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Macy's face went white. "That's out of context." "Were you?" I reached into my pocket, pulled out the envelope. "Were you also joking about this?" I handed her the first photograph. It showed her and a man I didn't know, kissing in the back room of her coffee shop. The timestamp was visible, 3 weeks ago, 10:15 p.m. Macy stared at it. Her hands started shaking. "What is this?" she whispered. I handed her the second photograph. Same man, different night, then the third, then the fourth. "Stop," she said. "Stop it." But I didn't stop. I handed her every photograph, one by one, while 200 guests watched in absolute silence. When I ran out of photos, I pulled out printed transcripts. "This is from security footage dated 2 months ago," I said. "Would you like to read what you said about the baby?" Macy's face had gone from white to red. She looked at Gavin, then at me, then at the crowd. People were pulling out phones, recording. "The baby's yours," I read from the transcript. "Gavin will never know." Someone in the crowd gasped. Several people stood up. "That's not real," Macy said desperately. "Harold is making this up. He's been obsessed with me." "Stalking you in your own business?" I asked. "The one my son owns 40% of?" "Gavin," Macy turned to him, tears starting. "You have to believe me. Your father is lying." Gavin looked at her for a long moment. Then he spoke for the first time. "I've known for 6 weeks," he said quietly. Macy froze. "Dad showed me the security footage the day he found it. I've watched you lie to me every single day since then. I've watched you plan our future while carrying another man's child. I've listened to you threaten my father." His voice grew stronger. "You don't have any power, Macy. You never did." He pulled a document from his jacket pocket. "This is our business partnership contract. It has a clause about conduct that damages the partnership. Infidelity qualifies. Extortion definitely qualifies. Gavin, please. Under the terms of this contract, your ownership of Macy's Brew is terminated effective immediately. The business now belongs entirely to me." Macy's legs buckled. She grabbed the altar. "You can't do this. That shop is mine." "With my money," Gavin said, "and my father's loan. You built it with resources you manipulated from me using lies." "I'll fight this," Macy said, her voice rising. "Tell them what?" I interrupted. "We have evidence, Macy. Video, audio, photographs. Grace has already filed the paperwork with the court. By Monday morning, this will be public record. Grace stood up. I'd also advise you that making false accusations at this point would constitute defamation. Given the evidence we have, you'd lose instantly and potentially face criminal charges. Macy looked around the barn wildly. Every phone was out now, recording. Her perfect wedding had turned into her complete destruction. "Who's the father?" someone called from the crowd. Macy didn't answer. She just stood there, shaking, tears running down her face. Macy's legs gave out completely. She caught herself on the altar, her makeup running in dark streaks. The officiant had backed away, clutching his ceremony folder. "This isn't happening," Macy whispered. But it was happening. 200 phones were recording. Someone in the back had started live streaming. In the front row, Macy's mother stood up, her face twisted with horror. "Macy, what is this?" her mother called out. Macy didn't answer. She was staring at Gavin with shock, as if she couldn't understand how this had happened. "You were supposed to love me," she said to him. Gavin's face was stone. "I did love you. That's why this hurts." "Then stop this," Macy begged. "We can fix this. It was a mistake." "Don't," Gavin cut her off. "Don't make it worse by adding more lies." Macy's bridesmaid stepped forward. "Maybe we should take a break." "No," I said firmly. "No breaks. This ends now." I looked at Macy directly. 6 weeks ago, you had everything. My son's love, his money, his future. You had a business, a reputation, but that wasn't enough. You wanted control. You wanted to trap Gavin. My voice hardened. Instead, you lost it all. The business is gone. Your reputation is destroyed. And that baby, everyone knows it's not Gavin's now. "Harold, stop," Macy's mother was crying. "Please." But Grace was already moving. She walked to the altar with a folder. "These are eviction papers for Macy's brew," she said, handing them to Macy. "You have 30 days to remove your belongings." Macy didn't take the folder. It fell at her feet. Grace continued. "We've documented every financial transaction. The $40,000 business investment, the $15,000 in loans, the credit card debt Gavin paid. Total, $68,000. We have a repayment plan prepared." "I don't have that kind of money," Macy said. "I have nothing." "You should have thought of that before you got greedy," Gavin said. Someone in the crowd started clapping. Just one person, slow and deliberate, then another joined. Within seconds, a third of the guests were applauding. Macy looked at them with wild eyes. "Stop. This isn't fair." "Fair?" I stepped closer. "You tried to trap my son with another man's child. You threatened to accuse me of harassment. You stole money, lied about everything." I leaned in, my voice dropping. "You wanted a house you'd never have to pay for. Now you don't even have the coffee shop." Macy's face crumpled. She looked around desperately for support. But the guests were either watching with satisfaction or turning away in disgust. Her lover wasn't here. He'd never been planning to stay. "I want everyone to leave," Macy said, her voice breaking. "It's not your venue anymore," Gavin said quietly. "I paid for it. My name is on the contract." The words hit her like a physical blow. "You planned this," she whispered. "All of it." "Yes," Gavin said simply. "I let you believe you were in control right up until I took it all away. Just like you did to me." Macy screamed then. Not words, just sound, raw and desperate. She grabbed flowers from the altar and threw them. She kicked at the papers Grace had dropped. 2 groomsmen moved toward her, uncertain. Her mother was sobbing. "You're all terrible people," Macy shouted. "You destroyed me over a mistake." "It wasn't a mistake," I said. "It was a choice. Every lie, every manipulation, every threat. Those were choices." "And now you live with the consequences," Gavin added. The weight of it hit Macy at once. Her shoulders sagged. The fight drained out. She looked smaller suddenly, stripped of all the confidence she'd worn like armor. "I need to sit down," she said faintly. "You can sit in your car," Gavin said. "You need to leave now. This is my wedding." "This was supposed to be your wedding," I corrected. "Now it's just a room full of people who know what you really are." Macy's bridesmaid finally took her arm, tried to lead her toward the exit. Macy resisted at first, but had no strength left. She let herself be guided down the aisle, past rows of guests who whispered and stared, and recorded her walk of shame. At the door, she stopped, turned back. "I hope you're happy," she said, her voice empty. Gavin looked at her for a long moment. Then he smiled, not happy, but satisfied. "I'm getting there," he said. Macy left. The barn doors closed behind her. For several seconds, nobody moved. Then someone started clapping again, and this time it spread through the entire crowd. Applause filled the barn. Loud, sustained, almost celebratory. I looked at Gavin. He was still standing at the altar, but the weight he'd been carrying for 6 weeks was finally gone. Grace came to stand beside me. She took my hand. "It's done," she said quietly. "Yes," I said. "It's done." The guests started leaving in groups, talking excitedly, already posting on social media. This would be the story people told for years. Gavin came down from the altar. He looked exhausted but clean, like something toxic had finally been purged. "Thank you," he said to both of us. "You did the hard part," I told him. "You held it together. That took real strength." "I learned from the best." Gavin managed a real smile. "You taught me that sometimes you have to tear down a bad structure before you can build something good." "That's exactly right," I said. We stood there together, the three of us, surrounded by empty chairs and abandoned flowers. "What happens now?" Gavin asked. "Now," Grace said, "we make sure all the legal paperwork is filed. We protect your assets. We ensure Macy can't come back with false claims." "And after that?" Gavin looked at me. I thought about Macy's face when she realized she'd lost everything. I thought about the applause, the satisfaction, the justice. "After that," I said, "you rebuild. You take that coffee shop and make it successful. You find someone who deserves you." Gavin nodded slowly. "That sounds good." We walked out together, leaving the decorations behind. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky orange and gold. Instead of a wedding, it followed something better. The story exploded online within hours. Videos of Macy's collapse, her screaming denial, her tearful exit, all of it went viral. By Sunday morning, she was a cautionary tale on every platform. Macy tried to fight back. She posted a long statement claiming abuse, manipulation, a setup. But the comments were brutal. People demanded evidence. When she couldn't provide any, her remaining supporters disappeared. Her lover never surfaced. On Monday, Grace filed all the paperwork. The business ownership transfer, the debt repayment plan, the documented evidence of fraud. Everything clean, everything legal, everything permanent. Macy hired a lawyer. He reviewed the evidence for 2 days, then advised her to settle. She had no case. The contract was ironclad, the proof overwhelming. She signed the settlement on Thursday. Gavin told me she cried through the whole meeting. That weekend, I helped Gavin change the locks on Macy's brew. We boxed her personal items carefully, had someone deliver everything to her mother's house. "You could have been cruel about this part," I told him. "I was cruel enough on Saturday," Gavin said. "This part is just business." The coffee shop reopened under new management on Monday. Gavin hired a manager, kept the good staff. Business actually improved. People wanted to visit the place they'd heard about online. Gavin changed the name 2 weeks later. Bainton's. Simple, clean, his. I helped him install the new sign. "How does it feel?" I asked. "Like I can breathe again," Gavin said. Grace kept monitoring for legal threats, but none came. Macy went quiet. Social media posts stopped. We heard she'd moved 2 towns over, living with her mother, working at a grocery store. The baby would come in a few months. Not our problem anymore. 3 months after the wedding that wasn't, Gavin took me to lunch downtown. He ordered confidently, paid with a card that said business account Bainton's. "The shop turned a profit this month," he said. "First time we're actually ahead." "That's good," I said. "I couldn't have done this without you." Gavin met my eyes. "You could have just told me to walk away." "Would you have listened?" "Probably not." He smiled. "But you showed me how to be strategic, how to think 3 steps ahead, how to build a plan so tight nobody could break it." "Those are good skills for life," I said. "I met someone, by the way. She works at the bookstore next to the shop. Emily, she's quiet, smart, doesn't care about social media." "Taking it slow?" "Very slow," Gavin confirmed. "I'm not rushing into anything ever again." We finished lunch and walked out into afternoon sunlight. Nobody recognized us. The viral moment had passed. "You know what's funny?" Gavin said. "Macy wanted a house. She had a path to all of it legitimately. If she'd just been honest, we could have built something real." He shook his head. "Instead, she lost everything because she couldn't stop lying." "People usually destroy themselves," I said. "When you build on lies, everything collapses eventually." "You build on truth," Gavin said. "That's what you taught me." We said goodbye. I watched him drive away, heading back to his business. His new life. He looked lighter than he had in months. I drove home to Grace. She was in the kitchen, reading case files. She looked up when I came in. How was lunch? Good, I said. He's doing well. I'm glad. She poured me coffee. And how are you doing? I thought about Macy's face at the wedding, about the justice of it. I'm satisfied, I said finally. What we did was right. It was brutal, Grace said carefully. But yes, it was right. She tried to destroy our son, I said. She tried to threaten me. She thought we were weak. She learned differently. She did. I sipped the coffee. Think she'll ever recover? Eventually. She's young. She'll rebuild. Grace paused. But she'll never forget that wedding. She'll carry it forever. Good, I said. Grace looked at me for a long moment. You're not a cruel man, Harold, but you're a dangerous one when someone threatens your family. Is that a bad thing? No, she said. It's exactly what it needs to be. Life settled into a new rhythm. Gavin ran the coffee shop successfully. I went back to renovation work. Grace continued at her law firm. But the story didn't fade away completely. I started getting calls. People who'd heard what happened, who needed help with their own situations, a woman whose business partner was embezzling, a man whose fiancée was hiding debt. They wanted advice, wanted someone who understood how to build a case. I turned most of them down. I wasn't a detective or a lawyer, but some of them I helped. Not directly. Just pointing them toward the right resources, the right questions to ask, the right way to document everything. Grace helped too, offering basic legal guidance. We didn't charge anyone. It was about helping people who'd been manipulated. One case stayed with me. A father called 6 months after Macy's wedding. His daughter was engaged to a man with a history: fraud, manipulation, targeting wealthy women. She won't listen, the father said. Do you have evidence? I asked. Yes. Court records, statements from previous victims. Then you need to show her, I said. Not by telling her, by letting her see it herself. People change their minds from undeniable truth, not arguments. I walked him through the process. 3 months later, he called again. She broke off the engagement, he said. It was hard. She was angry at first. But when she really looked at the evidence, she couldn't deny it. How is she now? Devastated, but safe. After we hung up, Grace asked me how it went. He saved his daughter, I said. Not everyone needs saving that way, Grace pointed out. No, I agreed. But some do. Sometimes people need to see consequences. You sound like you're developing a philosophy. Maybe I am. I've spent 30 years fixing houses. Maybe it's time I helped fix other things. Just be careful, Grace warned. She was right. But I also knew that somewhere out there, Macy was living with her consequences. She'd tried to build an empire on lies, and we demolished it completely. Actions have consequences. Lies have prices. And sometimes the people you underestimate are the most dangerous. A year after the wedding, I saw Macy. Pure chance. Hardware store 2 towns over. She was at checkout with cleaning products, wearing a store uniform. Her hair was pulled back. No makeup. She looked tired. She saw me at the same moment. We both froze. For several seconds, neither of us moved. Then she looked away first, scanning items with shaking hands. I could have said something, could have been magnanimous. But I didn't. I just walked past to a different checkout and left without looking back. That night, I told Grace. How did she look? Grace asked. Like someone who's been broken and is trying to rebuild? Do you feel bad? I thought about it honestly. No, she earned every bit of what happened. Some people would call it revenge. Some people would be right, I admitted, but it was also justice. We didn't lie. We didn't fabricate evidence. We just exposed the truth at exactly the right moment for maximum impact. Grace nodded slowly. I can live with that. So can I said. Gavin got serious with Emily. They moved in together after a year. He introduced her to us over dinner. She was quiet but sharp, funny in unexpected ways, clearly good for him. Does she know? Grace asked Gavin later. About Macy? Yes. I told her everything. She said it showed I could recognize manipulation now. Smart woman, Grace said. The coffee shop became a fixture in the neighborhood. Gavin expanded it after 2 years, added a bakery section. He was good at business. The betrayal had hardened him in useful ways. 3 years after the wedding that wasn't, Gavin proposed to Emily. He told me first. I'm nervous, he admitted. That's normal. What if I'm wrong again? You're not, I said firmly. I've watched you two together. She's nothing like Macy. She's honest, consistent, treats you like an equal partner. You're sure? I'm sure, I said. And you're strong enough now to handle whatever comes. That's what the last few years taught you. The wedding was small, just family and close friends. No social media, no performance, just two people who genuinely loved each other. I walked Emily down the aisle. She squeezed my arm. "Thank you for protecting him," she whispered. "I'd do it again," I said. The ceremony was simple and real. When they kissed, the small crowd applauded warmly. At the reception, Gavin pulled me aside. "I thought about inviting her," he said. "Macy?" "Yeah, to show her what a real wedding looks like." "But you didn't." "No, because this isn't about her. She was just an obstacle I had to get past." "That's exactly right," I said. We watched Emily laugh with her friends, watched people dance. "You know what's funny?" Gavin said. "She wanted a house. That's what started the final confrontation." I remember. Emily and I just signed papers on a place. 3 bedrooms, nice yard. We're paying for it ourselves. Every dollar earned, honestly. He smiled. Macy tried to manipulate her way into a house. Emily and I built toward one together. That's the difference between lies and truth. That's exactly the difference, I agreed. The reception ended late. Grace and I drove home through quiet streets. "That was a good day," Grace said. "Yes," I agreed. "That's what a wedding should be." "Do you ever think about her?" "Sometimes," I admitted. "But not with regret. Just with certainty that what we did was necessary." "No second thoughts?" "None," I said firmly. "She tried to destroy our son. We stopped her. That's all that matters." Grace squeezed my hand. "I love that you're ruthless when you need to be." "Only when someone threatens family," I said. "That's when it counts most." 5 years after the wedding collapse, I got a call from an unknown number. "Is this Harold Bainton?" A woman's voice. "Yes." "My name is Rebecca Torres. I know what you did for your son. I need help." I almost hung up, but something in her voice stopped me. "What kind of help?" "My brother is being manipulated by his girlfriend. She's isolated him from family, convinced him we're toxic. He's given her access to his accounts. I think she's stealing from him." "Have you talked to him?" "He won't listen. She's gotten in his head." Rebecca's voice cracked. "I can't just watch him be destroyed." I sighed. "Tell me everything." She did. For 40 minutes, she laid out a pattern I recognized: isolation, financial control, gaslighting. "Do you have evidence?" I asked. "Some. Bank statements. Text where she contradicts herself. Photos of her with another man. Then you need to document everything systematically, create a timeline, gather every piece of proof, then present it in a way he can't deny." "Like you did at the wedding?" "Not exactly," I said. "Public confrontation isn't always the answer. Sometimes private truth is more effective. What matters is that the evidence is undeniable." I walked her through the process. "Will this work?" she asked. "If you do it right, yes. But you have to be patient. He won't believe you immediately. You have to let the evidence speak." "Thank you," she said. 4 months later, she called again. Her brother had confronted the girlfriend, found more evidence, ended the relationship, was pressing charges for fraud. "He's angry at himself for not seeing it sooner," Rebecca said, "but he's free." "That's what matters," I said. After that call, I sat in my workshop thinking. I'd spent 5 years helping people occasionally. What if I made it more formal? I talked to Grace about it. "I'm thinking about starting something," I said. "A consulting service for people dealing with manipulation, fraud, relationship scams." Grace considered this. "You'd be good at it, you think systematically." "Would it be ethical?" "If those partners are genuinely harmful?" "Yes." Grace's voice was firm. "You're not helping people hurt innocents. You're helping them protect themselves from predators." "Do it," Grace said. "But keep me involved. Let me review situations, make sure everything stays legal." So I did. A simple website. Bainton Consulting. Strategic support for difficult situations. The first month, I got 12 inquiries. Half were legitimate manipulation cases. The other half were people angry at ex-partners, wanting revenge for normal relationship failures. I turned down the revenge seekers immediately. The legitimate cases kept me busy. A woman whose business partner was embezzling, a man whose son was in a cult-like group, a father whose daughter's boyfriend was isolating her. Each case was different, but the patterns were familiar. Document everything, build undeniable proof, present it strategically. I didn't always win, some people weren't ready, but more often than not, my strategies helped. Gavin worked with me sometimes. He understood manipulation from lived experience. "This one bothers me," he said one day, reviewing a case. A woman whose fiancé showed narcissistic patterns. Why? Because she keeps defending him. Reminds me of how I was with Macy. What changed for you? Undeniable evidence, Gavin said. When you showed me that video, when I heard her say the baby wasn't mine, I couldn't lie to myself anymore. So what does this woman need? One piece of proof she can't explain away. He was right. We helped her set up monitoring software on their shared computer. Within a week, she discovered her fiancé was running romance scams on dating sites, extracting money from lonely women. She ended the engagement immediately. Thank you, she told us. I thought I was crazy. You weren't crazy, I said. You were manipulated. There's a difference. Emily got pregnant. Gavin called at 6 a.m. We're having a baby, a girl, due in November. Congratulations, I said warmly. I'm terrified, Gavin admitted. What if I'm a bad father? You won't be, I said firmly. You've learned from experience. You know how to protect people. Grace and I became grandparents in November. Little Clara, born healthy and loud. She's perfect, Grace said, rocking Clara. She is, Gavin agreed. And I swear I'll protect her from people like Macy. I'll teach her to recognize manipulation, to value honesty. That's all any parent can do, I said. Watching Gavin with his daughter, seeing the gentleness and strength in him, I felt satisfied. What happened 6 years ago had broken him temporarily, but he'd rebuilt himself into someone better, stronger, capable of building healthy relationships and protecting what mattered. That was worth everything we'd done. The consulting work grew steadily. 3 years after starting, I had a waiting list. I hired an assistant, Diana, who'd escaped an abusive relationship herself. She understood the psychology, could spot patterns quickly. New case, Diana said one morning. Woman named Jennifer Park. Her daughter is engaged to a man with a history. Criminal record sealed, but they hired a private investigator. Found assault charges, restraining orders. The daughter knows? Refuses to believe it. I reviewed the file. The pattern was clear. The fiancé targeted women with money, isolated them, turned violent when challenged. Set up a meeting, I said. Jennifer came to my office 3 days later, composed but desperate. My daughter won't listen, she said. We've shown her police reports, statements. She claims it's all misunderstandings. People in love don't want to see evidence, I said. So what do I do? You give her proof she can't rationalize, something immediate and undeniable. I outlined a strategy. Legal surveillance. Jennifer would tell her daughter she was installing home security. Cameras would capture the fiancé's real behavior when he thought no one was watching. This feels like spying, Jennifer said. It is spying, I agreed, but it's also protection. Would you rather respect his privacy or keep your daughter safe? She hired me on the spot. The surveillance took 2 weeks. The fiancé showed his true nature when Jennifer's daughter questioned him about money. He screamed, threw objects, backed her against a wall. Everything captured in clear footage. I showed Jennifer first. She went pale. Now show your daughter, I said. Not as an argument, just as evidence. Jennifer did. Her daughter watched the video 3 times, then locked herself in her room for 6 hours. When she emerged, the engagement was over. She's devastated, Jennifer told me, but safe. Devastated heals, I said. Trapped or hurt might not. Clara turned 3. Gavin threw her a birthday party in the backyard of the house he and Emily owned now. I watched Clara run around with other kids, laughing, innocent. You ever think about Macy? Gavin asked, appearing beside me with beers. Sometimes, I admitted. But mostly I think about what came after, how you rebuilt, how you found Emily, how Clara exists because you were strong enough to tear down something rotten. I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have, I corrected. Maybe not the same way, but you would have survived. What I did was show you how to be strategic. Is that what you do now with all those cases? Gavin gestured toward my phone, buzzing with inquiries. Show people how to be strategic? Yes, I said simply. I show them how to build cases against people trying to destroy them, how to gather evidence, document patterns, present truth in ways that can't be denied. It's good work, Gavin said. I'm teaching them to help themselves, I corrected. That's more important. Emily called us in for cake. We sang for Clara, watched her blow out candles. A normal family celebration. But it only existed because 7 years ago we'd been willing to do something hard, something public, something brutal but necessary. No regrets. 10 years after the wedding, my phone rang. Unknown number. Harold? It's Rebecca Torres. You helped save my brother years ago. Someone I know needs help. Her situation reminds me of what you did for your son. By the time she finished explaining, I knew I'd take it. This was what I did now. Not building houses anymore. I built cases, constructed frameworks of evidence that exposed manipulation and freed people. 3 months later, the predator was exposed, the engagement ended, the daughter was safe. How do you always know what to do? The mother asked. Because manipulators follow patterns, I said. Once you recognize the pattern, you can dismantle it. Gavin expanded Bainton's into 3 locations, all successful, built on honest work. Clara was 10 now, sharp as her mother, kind like her father. She knew the story of what happened before she was born. Sometimes people try to hurt others, Gavin had explained. When that happens, you have to be smart and strong. Like you and Grandpa were? Clara had asked. Exactly like that. One evening, a documentary producer called wanting to interview me about strategic approaches to relationship manipulation. We heard about what you did at your son's wedding, the producer said. We think it's a story worth telling. Not publicity, education, they added. I agreed. The documentary aired to surprising acclaim. Suddenly, I was getting calls from across the country, people who recognized their own situations. You've become famous, Grace said. I've become useful, I corrected. But the exposure opened doors. I started working with law enforcement occasionally, helping build cases against con artists. I consulted with lawyers on fraud cases. All of it traced back to one moment 10 years ago. One wedding, one woman who thought she was smarter than everyone, one father who refused to let his son be destroyed. Sometimes people asked if I regretted the public nature of Macy's exposure. Did it have to be so devastating? One interviewer suggested. Yes, I said without hesitation. Because she wasn't going to learn from a quiet conversation. She needed to understand completely that manipulation has consequences. Some would call that revenge. Some would be right, I said calmly. But revenge and justice aren't always opposites. Sometimes they're the same thing delivered to someone who earned it. 15 years later, I received one final message. An email from someone who'd been at the wedding. Mr. Bainton, I was one of Macy's bridesmaids. What happened that day changed my life. I was in a relationship with someone manipulating me financially. Watching Macy's lies exposed gave me courage to investigate my own situation. I found similar deception. I ended that relationship and eventually found someone honest. I'm married now with 3 children. I'm happy in ways I never would have been. Thank you for showing me that truth matters, that we don't have to accept manipulation. You saved more than just your son that day. Jennifer Kim. I read it 3 times, then showed Grace. 20 years later, still making a difference, Grace said softly. Truth always makes a difference, I said. That night, I sat in my workshop, the same place where I'd first seen the security footage 20 years earlier, the same space where I'd made the decision that manipulation would not win. I thought about all the lives that had changed because of that decision. Gavin's, Rebecca's brother, Jennifer Kim, the hundreds I'd helped through consulting, the thousands who'd watched the documentary. One moment, one choice, 20 years of consequences. Macy had tried to build her future on lies. We'd demolished those lies completely, publicly, irrevocably. Truth was stronger than manipulation. Justice was possible. Predators could be stopped. I stood up, turned off the lights, walked inside where Grace was reading. You look satisfied, she said. I am satisfied, I said. Everything we did mattered. Grace closed her book. We sat together in comfortable silence. Somewhere in the world, Macy was living her life. Maybe she'd learned, maybe not. Either way, she was no longer my concern. She'd tried to destroy my son. We'd protected him. We'd exposed her completely. And from those ruins, we'd built something lasting. Not houses, not businesses, not even relationships. We'd built proof that predators could be stopped, that manipulation could be defeated, that ordinary people, armed with evidence and strategy, could protect themselves. That was the real victory, creating a model others could follow, showing people how to fight back, demonstrating that truth, properly wielded, was the most powerful weapon against deception. Ready for bed? Grace asked. Yes, I said. We walked upstairs together. At the top of the stairs, I paused and looked back at the house we'd lived in for 35 years. This was real. This was built on honesty and time and love that never required manipulation. This was what Macy could have had if she'd chosen differently. But she'd chosen lies, and she'd paid for those choices in front of 200 witnesses who would never forget. That was justice. That was right. That was exactly what she'd earned.